A good day to all of our listeners. This is Abraham Foss again of For Your Good Ministries International. Continuing with the series that we began quite some while ago that we've called There's Only One. And so today we're going to look at something, and I'm picking up on a term that's been common in the understanding and the conversation of many people over the recent past, and that's the word pandemic. We talk about the COVID pandemic. Some believe it's a plandemic, but whatever it might be, and I have my views on that as well, I want to use the word pandemic in my title today. So there's only one pandemic the world should be concerned about. And I might say it's not COVID-19, it's not any other disease-orientated pandemic that the world has known over the years. There's something far more damaging and far more consequential that hurts generations from the one to the next, to which we should have our primary concern. And so what is that pandemic? Well, let's look at the story of Adam and Eve as found in the book of Genesis. They are the children of a father, and that father's name was obviously God. And part of the enemy's motive, that's the devil's motive, in when he approached Adam and Eve, was to separate or break relationship of children from their father. And therein lies what I believe is the number one pandemic known to man. It is said that 70% of children go home to an absent father environment. Either the father is entirely absent, or is abdicating, or is non-existent. To say the figure of functionality of fatherhood is far higher than 70%, the figure that I've just indicated. And so the number one pandemic in the world today is absent or abdicating fathers. And as mentioned, that was the enemy's strategy when he came and he deceived Adam and Eve. And what he wanted to do was cut off the voice of the father to his children. And so when you remove the voice of the father, you remove something that's in the life and the raising of a child. For the enemy said to Adam and Eve, he said, did God or did the father really say? So the enemy wanted to remove or cut off relationship between children and father, and in doing so, cut off the voice of the father to the children. Because the father's voice or the father's example, as he patterns himself after God himself as father, is that from God through the father is the provider, he's the protector of the children. And so when that's removed, the child is left extremely exposed. In fact, we also know, as we receive our identity through God our Father, much of what we represent as a father on this earth consolidates or leaves devoid an identity that the child has. It's also said today that one of the biggest crises in the world is an identity crisis, that people don't really know who they are. And perhaps the most primary of all of those reasons is that the father figure has been removed. In many societies, in many cases, a child is born when the father's not even around. In some cases, a father may have several children to several women, perhaps 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, and he's maybe yet to even meet the children, and he's left them in the lurch that don't have a father figure that they can glean from, that they can relate to, that they can talk to, and that they can hear representing the father heart of God. I'm going to take a little bit of license here because the context isn't quite as I'm now using it today. But when you look at Malachi chapter 4, remembering what I said, the first thing the enemy wanted to do in the old covenant, which runs from Genesis through to Malachi, was to cut off the father from his children. The book of Malachi, which is the last book in the Old Testament, closes out with a message to fathers. Yes, this is referring to the Israelites, the fathers of the faith, and when Jesus would come. But I don't believe it's out of line to use it in the application of what I'm teaching today, that relates to fathers. So in Malachi chapter 4, the last few verses, and then we know there were 400 silent years. For me, it's almost as if God is saying, well, I'm leaving you with this very important message. And really, I have nothing more to say to you for 400 years, 4 centuries. In other words, I want you to get this thing right. This thing is salient. This thing is important. It's the first thing the enemy stole from Adam and Eve, who represent mankind, is he cut off relationship of children to father. He cut off the voice of the father as he fathers his children. Of course, a father is a function where you nurture, where you care for, where you disciple, where you love unconditionally, where you raise to a positive outcome, where you set vision, where you train up a child in the way he should go so that when he's old, he'll not depart from it. So Malachi writes this, he says, remember the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and the judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. A lot we could say there and pick up in context there, but I want to move on from there. This is the last verse in Malachi chapter 4, the last verse of the Old Testament, and then nothing God says for 400 years. It says, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. What will be the fruit of that? And then the hearts of the children to the fathers. It's not for the children to initiate this, to turn their hearts towards the father. It's for the father to turn his heart towards the children. What will that result in? What will its fruit be? That the hearts of the children will be turned back to the fathers. And then it says, lest I come and strike the land with a curse. And I believe one of the curses we have on this planet today is definitely, as the prophet indicates here, and as what occurred in the Garden of Eden, is that the father figure has been cut off. Now, father figure is not something we impose or we enforce or we dictate or we demand. It's anything but that. It is not that. Father is the one who goes before and sets the godly example as he feeds from the Father of heaven, God himself. And he brings that fatherhood of love and of care and of nurturing and of nourishment and of discipleship, of training and equipping, of readying that child, of setting its identity. That's a father. A father that demands is not a father that represents the Father in heaven. The fruit is that the child will love that father, will follow that father, will have their heart turned to that father when the father turns his heart to that child. So as I'm about to sign off, I want to say the number one pandemic, there's only one pandemic, I believe, that is greatly affecting our planet, from which all other, even pandemics such as viruses, etc., will ensue, is that the father figure has been cut off from the children. I want to encourage every father, if you're far removed from your child, you go and look up your child. You apologize to your child. You repent to your child. You ask your child to forgive you. And then you function as a father. If there's maintenance to be paid, you pay that and pay much more. You care for that child. You love for that child. You nurture that child. You be the father figure to that child. That child needs you desperately. Many children are out there lost and suffering and hurting. And I sincerely believe with love in my heart, the number one reason for that is we as fathers have abdicated or are absent or are far removed from our children. You search out that child. You go and find that child. You display love to that child. You provide for that child. You protect that child. Turn your heart towards your child and see the wonderful fruit of the heart of your child turn to you. So this is Abraham Foss of For Your Good Ministries International, saying God bless as you pursue being a father. And if you want to look us up at any stage, send us a message, ask a question, go to our website, www.foryourgood.net. Send us a message, send one to me personally, and I will look up and respond to the question or the query that you might have. God bless you, fathers. Rise up this day. Don't let the enemy cut you off from your children. Rise up and be the father that God has called you to be. Farewell.